Hi, this is Andy, Andy's Personal Development, and we are currently live in the breakout room. We have a very special guest that's going to be with us on this program, and I'd just like to make a quick, short introduction to him with regards to what he's going to be doing and sharing with us on this program, this edition of the breakout room. So, stand by while I get the information. I'm just going to call him Richard Quickly, and he's a creative author who has had two transformational life experiences that he wants to share with others. He is famously known as the man that is responsible for taking people to a place where he describes it as found my people. That's right, you heard it, found my people. So, just about now, I'd like to introduce our guest into the studios. And his name, as I said, is Richard Wakely. There's much more to it, but he's going to tell you about that as soon as he comes on. Let's introduce our guest. How are you, Richard? Welcome to the program.
I'm well, Andy. Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's great to have you, my friend, and we appreciate very much you taking the time to join us and be on this special edition of the Breakout Room. I say special because man, your experience, your information, your life story is absolutely amazing and thrilling. And I
Thank
can
you. Thank you,
hardly
sir.
wait. Yeah, I can hardly wait to get into the meat of it all. So I'm gonna try something here, and you can tell me if I'm singing okay or if I'm singing not. Sawu bona.
Sawobona.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
It is supposed to be from the Zulu tribes a greeting that says or means, I see you.
Okay. I
See
like
you,
that.
you are. I see your beauty. I see your flaws. I see everything about you, but I just see you. And it's
Excellent.
amazing because it is supposed to be one that is used across the continent of Africa. So I greet you because I see you, my friend.
It might be, and I really love that. Thank you so much. But I'm connecting to the culture, so that might be one that they haven't told me about yet.
Yeah, very much possibly, very much possibly. Okay,
But
great.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful. You're welcome, Richard. You're wonderful. And you're welcome. So, Richard, tell us about you growing up as a young man. We're going to get to the exciting stuff. But, for every one of us, there's a story where we grew up, where we came from, the culture, the background, the villages, the people, whatever it is that would have affected our lives and create the necessary foundation for the characteristics and mannerisms that we have today. How was it for you as a young man growing up, Richard? Share with us, please.
Okay. So I had a little bit of delay. I didn't catch the last part of what you said.
Just share with us your background with regards to where you grew up and what it was like as a young man in your village.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm African American, so I grew up in the United States.
Okay.
I didn't learn that I am Ghanaian and Nigerian until I was in my 50s. Actually, 2013 was when I visited. So, but when I was coming up, I had a family of we're a family of six. Mother, father, four children. Um, so we were just basically a normal family. My mother did a very good job of teaching us how to cook, and I'm so glad. I was not happy at the time. When we were 12 years old, she made everybody learn how to cut up a whole chicken. We didn't buy those chicken parts, like breast, legs, things like that. She bought whole chickens because it was less expensive, and we had to learn how to cut up the chicken. And she made sure every child at 12, she said they're old enough. She started teaching us how to cut up, how to cook chicken different ways. And so I said, I was really not happy about that at 12 years
Mm,
old. So
yeah.
I didn't wash the chicken. So when we sat down to eat dinner, mom said, "Oh, well, she said, Rich cooked the chicken." I said, "Well, I didn't wash it." She said, "Well, you're gonna eat the back." She just didn't miss the beat. She just because the back is the part that has everything to clean out. So, but ever since then, I've told her many times that I thank her so much because I grew to love cooking. Now, I actually enjoy cooking, and I make a pretty mean dish every now and then.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. Thanks for sharing, Richard.
Hmm.
So, what it was like for you with regards to the transition, growing up in the United States and longing to be in touch with your roots back where your mums and your dad lived.
Well, actually, my mom and dad also lived here, so we were, several generations of African Americans.
Yeah.
And but I, more than most of my siblings, did want to have that connection. I talked about finding out our roots early on. I talked about finding our roots, and I was not actually thinking about African roots. I was just thinking about the roots because the only, as far back as we know, because of enslavement, is my great great grandfather on my mother's side, and on my father's side, we only know back to my grandmother on his side. So I wanted to just kind of do family tree things like that, you know. But so I was really the child that was really most interested in that.
Yeah.
It came later on that, and even when I went to Africa, I wasn't necessarily even looking for roots. I was just
Okay.
wanting to visit because I had heard so much good from my longtime doctor who was Nigerian. So
Right.
uh, I did want to learn about my roots, but at the beginning it was just kind of fill out the family tree type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get down to some really important information. It says that in 2019, you had two life threatening illnesses at the same time. And
Yes,
the doctors diagnosed of possible kidney failure requiring lifelong dialysis, as well as liver failure, which was determined to be because of what? Sepsis. Man,
yes.
how was that experience like for you, Richard?
Well, that was challenging, and it was one of those times when your faith really, really has to pull you through.
Yeah,
I have had a strong faith in the Lord for a long time,
yeah.
and one of my favorite scriptures is that God is not a man that he should lie.
Mm,
And 2019, I actually had returned to Africa for the first time in 6 years because when I went in 2013, I wanted to get back every year after that, but I couldn't until 2019.
okay.
And then they make you take certain travel injections,
Yeah.
that they recommend, and those things didn't agree with me because everything was fine. My creatinine was 1.21, which is within the normal range. It's supposed to be
Mhm.
less than 1.4 when
Yeah.
I had my checkup in January of 2019. But then all of a sudden, you go on the trip and you take those travel injections, and now you've got creatinine of 4.94. That's what the doctor told me. She said your creatinine is 4.94, and I was, I know I had just gotten 1.21 just 5 months earlier,
Yeah.
6 months earlier, and I was just, it was like unbelievable. And then she
Wow.
said, she diagnosed that you're going to have dialysis for life,
Mm,
and that we could have possible liver failure. And then, like you said, just a side order of sepsis, just to make sure I really knew where I was at, right?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, it reminded me of Job a little bit. I mean, just like slap, slap, slap. You just getting
Yeah.
slapped in the face with these things.
No time
And
to recover.
what was that now?
No time to recover.
Yes. And so, anyway, when she told me all of these things at one time, and then I thought about the fact that she said with creatinine, she said medically, with medical science, it's not possible to reverse. In other words, if you've gotten up to that number, 4.94, she said you can maintain, but you can't really reverse. If you do the right things with lifestyle, everything like that, you can maintain, but you can't reverse.
Yeah.
And so the scripture where the Lord said, "All with man it is impossible, but with God all things are possible,"
Yeah.
that really spoke to me during that time because when she finished giving me the diagnosis and the prognosis, yeah.
Amen to
So
that, brother.
thank
Amen
you,
to
thank
that.
you, amen, amen. But when she finished giving me the diagnosis and the prognosis, I looked at her because God had given me a prophetic word in 2016.
Uh huh.
He said that he wanted me to get ready to travel. He said he was going to send me out. He said the message that he had for me to give was not just for my town and not just for my state. And so he just said, basically said, get ready to travel. And I said, if what God has said is true, I said, there's no way I could be on dialysis, because if you're on dialysis, you can't travel like that. You
Yeah.
know, you have to have it so many times a week. So I said, I looked at her after she told me that. I said, well, that's not going to happen. I said, what's going to happen? I said, in 5 days, I'm going to walk out of here. I'm going to make a miraculous recovery. And she said, why do you say that? And I told her about the prophetic word that God gave me. And I said, one of my favorite, I call it a master key verse.
Yeah.
When I used to teach Sunday school, I used to tell my teenage students, I taught the teenagers in Sunday school, I told them, get out your phones. I said, make a contact in your phone contacts and put master key verses. I
Yeah.
said, and put this one down first. Numbers 23:19. For God is not a man that he should lie,
Right.
neither
Yeah.
is he the son of man that he should repent. Has he
Yeah.
said something, and shall he not do it? Has he
That's right.
spoken, and shall he not surely bring it
Yeah.
to pass?
That's
So
right.
I reasoned that if God told me this in 2016, and he knew when he told me he sees everything,
Yeah.
there's no time in heaven. So he knew in 2016 when he told me that in 2019 I was going to be laid in that bed hearing that prognosis and that diagnosis. So I said, I choose to believe that God is going to heal me.
Right.
I I told her, I said, God gave me this prophetic word. I said, God is not a man that he should lie. He knew that I was going to be here in 2019 when he told me that in 2016. I
Yeah.
said, so even though it is impossible with man, because she told me to reverse that was not possible. But I
Mm.
said, it's possible with God. And
Yes.
so I planned, I believed that in 5 days I was going to walk out of there with a 1.21 creatinine, and that I was going to, walk out just in health. And so I did walk out in 5 days. Even the doctor said I made a remarkable recovery. However, I did not get down to 1.21 in creatinine. I was only down to 3.4. But the
Okay.
doctor told me to drop 1.5 in 5 days. She said that is remarkable. You know, doctors don't like to say miraculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Said that is remarkable. And she even put it in. I mean, I have the medical records where she put the patient made a remarkable recovery. So it's really taken 3 years, but by the grace of God, my kidneys are back to normal in the mighty and most excellent name of Yeshua HaMashiach.
Thank
Amen.
God. Yeah. Wonderful. That's an amazing testimony, Richard, and I thank you so much for sharing. I know it's going to move the hearts and minds of people. Folks need to hear stuff like that coming
That
from
God
some.
heals.
Yes, he still does. And it
That's
has
right.
never changed and it will never change because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever.
That's right. And I'm a living example of the miracle power of God. That's what I tell people. I say,
Yes,
if you've
that's
never
right.
seen a miracle, if you look at me, I am a miracle, because literally I would have been dead. If it was not for my faith, I believe I would have been dead, because the kind of news I got is the kind of news can make most people crumble. And
Yeah,
I'll be frank, if it wasn't for that prophetic word that God gave me in 2016 that I had to lean on and faith in Him, I probably would have crumbled too. But I said, if God said this, He doesn't lie. God told me the things that He had told me hadn't happened yet. So I
yeah,
said, God is gonna heal me, because I can't do the things He said I was gonna do unless He heals me. So God is able to heal me. Nothing is
that's right.
impossible with Him. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna lean on that and say it's possible. And by the grace of God, I'm glad that the God answered my faith and healed me.
Amen a million times over to that. Wonderful story. So, Richard, here's the thing. What's a visceral connections coach?
Okay,
Tell us
so
about that in detail.
a visceral connection is something that is not cerebral,
Uh huh.
it's not emotional,
Right.
it's beyond that. It is, I believe, spiritual.
Okay.
So you might have heard the saying where people say, my ancestors were waiting for me. Sometimes they go to the point of no return. When I was at the point of no return in Nigeria, some people say I went to that and my ancestors were waiting for me. But what I believe is our ancestors come with us.
Okay.
That's how they can find out what tribe and what people group we're from for so many, centuries back is because of the DNA. It's the same DNA that was in them that has come down all the way through all of our ancestors and is still with us today. So I believe we carry our ancestors with us. And I believe that when we get to those places where they might have had trauma or something, I believe the DNA recognizes it and
Okay.
it bypasses our brain. It bypasses because our brain wasn't there when it happened to them. Neither was our emotions there when it happened to them. But that DNA was there. And I
Yeah.
believe it imprinted and the DNA knows their position in the earth where it happened. I believe when I got back to that position, it was just, there was just tears coming down from my eyes. Of course, I was thinking about my ancestors, but it was just beyond cerebral. It was beyond spiritual. I call it visceral. Beyond emotional, beyond cerebral. I
Yeah.
call it spiritual or visceral. So I am helping people to think about some things that they haven't thought about so that they can have that visceral connection. For example, Marcus Garvey said that a people without the knowledge of their history, origin, or culture is like a
Yeah.
tree without roots.
That's
There's
right.
some there's some characteristics about African Americans that are different from other Americans that we've just accepted as normal. And I'll tell you what I mean. Number one, we're the only people that call ourselves by a continent instead of a country. There are 54 countries in Africa, okay? But if you talk to somebody from that are Asian Americans, when you talk to them individually, they don't say they're Asian American. They say, I'm a Chinese American, I'm a Japanese American, I'm a Korean American.
Yeah.
If you talk to somebody from Europe, they say, I'm an Italian American, I'm a Spanish American. You
Yeah.
talk to somebody from Africa, they say, I'm a Nigerian American, I'm a Ghanaian American, right? South African American. But we, African Americans, because no fault of our own, because of the legacy of enslavement, we call ourselves by a continent. That's
Yeah.
one. Number two, we're the only people that have had so many names:
Hmm.
Negro, Black, Colored, African American, and now the new one is BIPOC,
Yeah.
Black, Indigenous People of Color.
Yeah.
So that's the new seat they want us to sit in. In a few years, decades, it's going to be something else. Why?
Yeah.
Because we don't have that root connection. And thirdly, we're the only people that have a name that are not intimately acquainted with the food and culture of that name. For example, the average African American has never eaten African food. We're not familiar with African culture. And African culture would have to be by the people group because there's so many. It's the largest continent, and so there's so many different countries, and each country has so many different tribes. Even in Nigeria, there's over 200 something tribes.
Wow.
Myself, I'm of the Igbo and the Yoruba people of Nigeria on my father's side, of the Fanti people of Ghana on my mother's side.
Yeah.
So we have never tried African, the mass majority have never eaten African food. And so, can you think about an Italian person that doesn't know Italian food, or a person from India that doesn't know Indian food, a
Yeah.
person from Greece that doesn't know Greek food, a person from Germany that doesn't know German food? No, it's natural. It's second nature. If they call themselves by that name, they know their food. But these things have happened for us for so long that we don't even think about it you
Wow.
know so we're like the full moon. The full moon is a bright, beautiful thing. That's like African Americans. Our culture has been copied all over the world. Just like the full moon, our culture is beautiful. But there's another half when you look at the full moon that is not seen. It's just as big as the half that we see because the
Yeah.
sun only shines on one half. We
Yes.
are like that. We have this beautiful African American culture, or Afro Caribbean, or Afro English culture, whichever, or Afro Brazilian, whichever, form of the descendants of African enslaved we take. But yet, there's another side that we don't know. And that is what a visceral connections coach does. I help us to recognize that we don't need to stay in this condition. It wasn't our fault, but we don't need to stay in this condition. It's time for us to embrace all of our DNA,
Yeah.
embrace all of our DNA, and find out all of who we are so we can connect to a rich culture that will enrich our lives. And I have a poem to illustrate that later on when you let me know. But
All
it
right.
will enrich our lives in ways that we could not imagine. And that's what it's done for me.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for that detailed explanation, and it sounds as though it's something you have actually embodied, Richard, and that's really powerful. Yeah,
Thank you.
it's powerful. You're welcome, sir. I want you to tell us a bit about Found My People.
Okay, Found My People is the book that I wrote after I found my people. So I went to Nigeria in 2013 with my longtime doctor who was Nigerian after he had told me so many times about Nigeria, and he had invited me to the Independence Day celebrations where I got exposed to Nigerian fashion, Nigerian food. The food, number one, if you haven't tried the food, it's delicious. It's
Uh-huh.
mwah,
Ah,
delicious.
all right.
The fashion of the Nigerian and the Ghanaian women, as well as other Africans, is second to none in the world.
Yeah.
I would put nobody past the beautiful culture. I mean, anybody that's listening or listens to this later that has not seen, just go ahead and go on DuckDuckGo and do a search. I tell
Yeah.
people to use DuckDuckGo because it doesn't
Yeah.
follow you all around the internet like some other people, which we won't name.
Okay.
But that way they'll have some privacy. But then they
Okay.
can search Nigerian fashion or Ghanaian fashion, and they'll see just how beautiful it is. And so the people of Nigeria told me that I was Igbo. The Igbos told me I was Igbo. The Yorubas told me I was Yoruba. So when I did my DNA, I found out indeed they are correct. Excuse
Wow.
me.
Yeah.
So it showed me that I was Igbo and Yoruba on my father's side, and I said, "Wow!" The people told me I was Igbo and Yoruba, and indeed, I mean, it said specifically Igbo and Yoruba. And then on my mother's side, it showed me I was Ghanaian Fanti, which I did not know until I took the DNA. And so now I am connecting to all of my culture.
Wow. Amazing. That's really a fascinating story, Richard. And I love the way in which you explain the beauty and the food. Wow. Maybe someday I'll get the opportunity to taste some of that food. I really would look forward to something like that. The way you explained it. Mwah! I can
Have you?
imagine.
Man, I'm gonna tell you. Let me tell you a story. My sister, who
Uh-huh.
was very resistant,
Uh-huh.
I had brought home some agusi soup. I want you to, you know, the way chili is in America, where you can go different regions. They make it different ways, but it's all chili. You can
Yeah.
go to 20 different houses. It might be made 20 different ways, but it's all chili, right?
Right.
Well, agusi soup is kind of like that in Nigeria. It's made across different tribes. Agusi soup is a popular soup, and what they do is they take pounded yam or something like that, and pounded yam
Yeah.
is like thick potatoes, and they
Okay.
just take a little bit of it in their hand and they dip it in the soup and eat it like that with their hand. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's delicious. So anyway, I bought some home. My mother was there, my sister was there, and my sister's daughter, my niece was there. And so when I came in the door, I said, my mother's house. I said, hey, I said, I've got some igusi soup for you all to try. This is a Nigerian uh, cuisine.
Yeah.
And so my mother said, okay. My niece was like, wow, okay, that's great. My sister, no, I don't want to try it. I don't want to try it, right? I said, don't worry, it will not go to waste. So
Yes.
anyway, I put out some for my mom. My mom was like, oh, that's delicious. I put
Wow.
out some for my niece. My niece said, it is really good. And then so my sister's like, okay,
Mm.
let me try some.
Ah, she got pulled
So,
in. She got pulled in.
oh yeah, I was like, because I wasn't saying nothing to her.
Yeah.
She told me,
Yeah.
I said, she didn't even look. She didn't want to look at it. You know what I'm saying? She didn't want to look at it to see what it looked like before she just, I don't want it. I don't want it. I
Oh yeah.
said, and so when she saw that it was favorable, she had tried it out on Mikey, so to speak, like that old
Mm,
commercial
yeah.
back from the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then she was like, and she tried it. She said, "Ooh, this is good."
Yes.
A little later, she learned that somebody from the local Nigerian community that I joined after I found out I was Nigerian
Yeah.
works with her. And so she said, hey, the next time you make a goosey soup, could you bring me some? And just the
Mm.
other day, it's like maybe about a week ago now, she told me that her friend bought that agusi soup with fufu. She said it was so good. So even my reluctant sister is now engaging with the culture.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. That is something. That is something.
Mhm.
I'm gonna give that something. Gonna give it a
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So Richard, when you get involved with coaching and you're dealing with your clients and so on, what are some of the things that they are challenged by or areas of concerns that they have that they share with you? And how does your visceral style help them to get from one place where things may not be so clear to a place of clarity where they receive the information and there's some form of transformation that takes place and now they're inspired to move on to a higher level?
Well, that's a deep, complex, and good question. Um, well, one of the biggest concerns that people have is, if, especially if they choose to do something like I did, legally change their name, is what their family is going to say about it. You know,
Okay.
what kind of reaction they're going to get from even other African Americans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I address this in one chapter in my book. It's called "Dissension in the Ranks,"
Ah.
where I tell the story of a Nigerian Yoruba princess. She really is a princess. Her father's an Oba. Oba is the name for king in Yoruba language. Her
Yeah.
father is an Oba, and she is the daughter. So she's really, literally a princess, which was very upset about the fact that I
Hmm.
was wanting to connect to my roots. She said, all I should know is that, I should just want to know Jesus and that's it. And I said, well, but in the Bible, there are 42 generations where God takes us from Abraham to Jesus.
Yeah.
He thought it very important that we should know each step along the way. It's some of the most boring reading in the Bible. I've told the Lord about that, so I'm not talking behind his back. But he thought it necessary. So I let them know it's one of those things that they have to be resolute on. Then there's another there's another example in the book where I went to a place. It was a Caribbean restaurant, and I
Hmm.
told the young lady that I was an American Nigerian, and she said, "Well, were you born in Nigeria?" I said, "No." She said, "Are your parents born in Nigeria?" I said, "Well, no." She said, "Then you're not Nigerian." And
Ah.
I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, here's the thing: when you know who you are, it doesn't matter what anybody else said." But I said, "But
Yes.
what are you?" She said, "I'm Jamaican, man. I'm Jamaican, man. I'm Jamaican." I said, "Well," I said, "So you know Jamaican culture?" She said, "Yes." I said, "So you were born in Jamaica?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Your parents were born in Jamaica?" She said, "Yes." I said, "But Jamaica is a country, but what is your tribe?" And you
Mm.
couldn't. And then I said, "Because you see, when you do your DNA, it will show you what people group you're connected to in Africa. It won't say
Yeah.
Jamaica. It'll tell you what people group you came from in Africa."
Yeah.
And her mother said, "He is correct." And
Wow.
so after that, she said, "Well, I guess between the two of us, I don't know." So I use these types of examples to let them know that you have to be resolute. And this is the kicker. This is the one that helps them to have confidence no matter what anybody says to them. It's just four words: the blood doesn't lie. The blood doesn't lie. If it's in the DNA, I don't care what they say. The blood doesn't lie. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My blood, my DNA has Fanti people of Ghana, it has Igbo people of Nigeria, and it has Yoruba people of Nigeria. So I'm
Wow.
an American, Ghanaian, Nigerian. And see, you brought us to another point. That is, connecting to your roots will increase your confidence
Right.
because you will know who you won't be guessing anymore. You won't
Mhm.
think, people tell me I look like this and tell me I look like, you will know what
Yes.
people group you connect to. You'll be able to start doing research. You'll be able to start learning about the culture. And man, when you start eating the food, oh my goodness. As long as you find somebody that knows what they're doing when they're cooking it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Great. That deserves a trumpet sound. Wow. So, Richard, I want to read something for you and I want to get your feedback on it. This is
Okay,
truly amazing.
hold
You're gonna be
on. Let me
you're gonna
plug
be
up. I thought my looks like my battery's running low. Give me one quick moment. Sorry about that. I
sure,
thought my power was on. Hold on, I'll be right back.
sure.
sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all
You
good.
know how you have it plugged in, but it's not. I guess it's not all the way synced up.
Yeah,
And so I looked at it and it said your power is going to be going out. I said, "What?
yeah,
Wait a minute. This saying it's still not plugged up. Let me see if it's the back here.
yeah.
I don't see power coming to it because it'll cut off quick when it tells you it doesn't have that long. I don't want that to happen. One more quick second. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, looks like we lost him. Wow. I'm because it's just lost for a while as his power seems to have just logged out there on us. So while we continue to stay tuned on the program, I just want to remind us that for the coming season, that is for 2024, we will have season 4 of the Breakout Room and season 3 of Let's Just Read and season 2 of Breaking Out of Depression. And it's going to be a bit of a challenge because at the end of the day, I'm being asked to do a morning program with regards to the LBW radio network with our producer Dexter Honore coming out of Dominica and Bonaire. So it is something that I need to focus on. It is something that I need to think about. But I get a lot of my inspiration from you people. So Richard is back with us. How you
I
doing, Richard?
apologize. The power went out. I missed it by like a hair. But anyway, we're all powered up and synced up now.
That's
Sorry
all
about
right.
that.
That's all right. So as I said, I was going to read something for us, and you're going to be very familiar with this. It says, a frisson of excitement went through me as I stepped onto the beach. This was my first time visiting the African continent, and I decided to start with a country known as the Giant of Africa. It only took a few minutes for sweat beads to form on my forehead, which would not have been the case if I was at home, since it was the month of November. But this was Africa. As I headed toward the water and began to feel the heat rising in my shoes, suddenly I heard music coming from the street behind me. It was a troupe of some sort. Before I knew it, my body was swaying to a nice beat. I love that. I love that.
Yes.
Relive
That was
that for us, please. Relive that for us, Richard.
that was the point of no return. That's Badagry. The
Ah,
point of no return. That's when we actually first got to Badagry, and we were walking towards the beach because there's a place that says Slave Port, Nigeria, and so I was walking toward that. But then the music kind of drew me back. There was this bunch of the Nigerian youth basically were doing such a fantastic uh, playing the melodious music and dancing and things like that. So it actually drew me back before I went in and had that visceral experience. So it was kind of like a nice little thing that happened just before that visceral experience of dealing with the reality of my ancestors. And I didn't know at that time that that's the beach that they came from because I didn't know. They had told me that I was Nigerian, but what I told my daughter was I don't know if this is the place where our ancestors came, or got taken from. I said, but it is on this continent. I said, so this is the first time in more than 400 years that anybody from our family has been back on the soil where it all began. So I told her, I said, it's extremely important that we're here. And then, of course, I had the visual experience, and then I found out later that I am indeed a descendant of Nigerians who were taken because the Nigerians that were taken from Nigeria were taken from that spot.
yeah,
That was the last place on continental Africa that they stood before they were taken and never to see the continent again.
yeah, Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Richard. Are there any more works for you in the future? Are you looking to continue a sequel or a continuation, or maybe something that is uniquely different but on the same beat, on the same sort of topic subject, as you continue to discover more about your roots and your DNA, so to speak?
Well, if I do anything in the future, I think it will be related to helping people understand just how life enriching it can be to connect with our roots.
Yeah, yeah.
Something that can really convey that point is what I would want to do, because Found My People actually helps to convey that point of how life enriching it was for me, and also suggests that it can do that for others.
Yeah.
I also talk about how, for those that want to change their name, what it took for me to change my name. I have the last chapter is called The Paperwork Old. So it talks about all the paperwork that you have to do if you want to change your name and things like that related to this, what I call nullifying the legacy of enslavement.
Okay.
And so if anything, I would be doing that, because my goal with Found My People is to help millions of us. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the numbers or not, but of course you know there's over 40 million African Americans. I heard the number 47 million. But did you know in Brazil it's over 90 million? It's like two for every one African American. There's like two Brazilians that don't know their ancestral connection. And then
Wow.
when you count all of the Americas, Canada, United States, Central America, South America, the Caribbean, it's actually over 200 million. And that's just on this side of the pond. That's not even knowing. I don't even know what the numbers are for Afro English, and the people from the Middle East that were enslaved, descendants of theirs. Some of which ended up in India and things like that in Asia. So I don't even know what the number is globally. Just in the Americas and the Caribbean, it's over 200 million. So my
Wow.
goal is to help as many of those, because after being successful in the U.S., I want to get it translated to Portuguese and go to Brazil, because if we're helping our African Americans, then there's twice as many over there in Brazil, and they speak Portuguese. So I want to help us as many as want to. I say that because some people say, "Hey, I don't want to. I want to be known as an African American tribe," and that's fine if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not against that. But I say all who will. That's what my goal is. My whole purpose for writing Found My People was to help people understand just how life enriching it is. That we don't have to have these unique characteristics about us if we don't choose to. We can end that. We can make a new start, and we can enrich our lives and be transformational about it when we connect back to our roots.
Yeah. So Richard, is this what you mean by it says here he believes that each disconnected African descendant can have a revelation day that will enrich their lives and be nothing short of transformational?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Fanti side, okay? So in Ashanti land, which is like a cousin to the Fanti, they are one of the Akan tribes. So they're all like related. The Akan, the Fanti, Aquia and one other tribe. They're called the Akan tribes in Ghana. Now, there's a ancient Adinkra symbols. And in America, we are so used to saying, African Americans are so used to saying, but God. We'll say
Mm,
such and such happened, but God. We all know what that means. As a matter of fact, they don't have to go on after that, because we know that it turned out all right.
yeah.
Because when they say but God, we know it was going bad, but God turned it around, right?
Right. Right.
Well, guess what the Ashanti say? There's a symbol. It's an ancient Adinkra symbol, and it is the most popular Adinkra symbol. And when I say ancient, that means I don't know how many hundreds of years old, but it's ancient symbols. Okay, and it's called GMA, GYENYAME, GMA,
Mhm.
and the GMA means except for the Lord. It's basically the same thing. And
Yeah.
then we will also greet people, and African Americans will greet each other, and we'll say, "Well, how's everything going?" I'll say, "Andy, how's everything?" You say, "Oh, things are going great by the grace of God." Right?
Yeah.
That's a common thing for us to say. Well,
Yes.
guess what? Guess what the Ashanti say? When they say, they might say good morning, which is mache.
Hmm.
Mache is good morning. Etisane. Etisane means how are you? And then somebody might answer and say, Mehoye pa. That means I'm
Mm.
doing very well.
Yeah.
Yame Adom. Yame Adom is by God's grace.
Right.
Yame Adom. We're saying, I see these connections where even though we didn't have the symbol in as African Americans, but we have the same saying that they have in the Shanti and the Fanti, which is by God's grace, but God, except for the Lord, but God is really basically the same thing.
Yeah.
But we were separated from culture and all of that. But what was in our DNA? We've come up
Hmm.
with something. We didn't have the symbol, but I see such similarities. And so these are the kind of things that will be the revelation. They'll come to places and they'll feel at home like they've never felt at home before. They will see people that look like people they know. They'll see people that look like people in their family. They'll begin to know, oh, well, that person is from this people group. And I mean, it's just life enriching. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
I tell people you have to do it. You have to find out where you're from, what people group you're connected to, and then come visit for at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. So that's what I tell people because I believe it's going to be a revelation day. It's going to be nothing short of life enriching and transformational. It's easily one of the best things I ever did in my life. That was a great decision when I decided to go to Nigeria in 2013 because my life has never been the same since that day.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love it, Richard. I really love it. Truly amazing stuff. I'm coming to the end of the broadcast and I see people just popping in and out, but no comments as yet. But I'd like to give you the opportunity, and I'm going to share as well this information with regards to how they can make contact with you. Just let
Okay.
them, and how they can get the book. And if they need you, your visceral coaching services, how they can make contact with you as well.
Okay. They just can go. I made it very easy. The website is just like the name of the book, foundmypeople.com. So
Okay.
they can simply go to foundmypeople.com, and that's the website. And I'm on Instagram at underscore found my people, underscore found my people. And so they can reach out that way. And everyone that gets the book, if you look at the cover of the book when you go on, there's a free 2 chapter preview. If you go on to the Found My People, you click on USA Global, it'll take you to Amazon. Go to the Kindle version, and it has a free 2 chapter preview. If you scroll back, it will take you all the way to the front, and there's an inspirational poem. And then you go on to the forward, and it just gives you the 2 chapter preview so that they can actually take a look before they leap to get the book.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing. You were going to show us something. I think it was a chart or something you were going to show us.
It was a
Uh,
poem I wanted to tell you about.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this poem, it's in the front of the book. When you go to that Kindle version, you scroll back.
Yeah,
It says inspirational poem. It's called "It's in Your DNA," and this is the poem that God gave me a little after, but that part that you read
yeah,
in the book,
right.
and it is this: It does not matter what they say. There is greatness in your DNA. The proof is in the lies they choose to tell to make themselves feel superior. They point to chaos in different places, but hide what their hands did to bring it about. There is greatness in us, but they don't want it out.
Hmm.
I think they know they could not compete if the field were level and they couldn't cheat. So
Wow.
on they go, lives filled with lies to make pretend and rationalize. They say all is equal. Why do you complain? Pretending that their constant lies have not changed the game and made people perceive just by your skin who should lose and who should win.
Win.
There
Ah,
are some things you have to know. Don't wait for someone to tell you so.
Mm.
Reject the lies of yesterday. Embrace the greatness in your DNA.
Me. Ah, amazing, wonderful. That's a great, powerful piece of poetry. It's like an ode to some level of inspiration that's really visceral. That powerful term that you use to describe your coaching. So,
Hmm.
as we bring this episode to an end, let's imagine that, Richard, you had a megaphone and you could speak to almost 8 billion people on the planet. And there's just one thing that you have to say from your heart to them that you just have to get out and you need them to hear. What would you
Okay.
say, Richard? What would you say?
Uh, there's only two poems in this book. I would tell them the second poem. It's shorter.
Uh huh.
And that is this. It's the same title as the book, Found My People. And it goes like this: I've found my people. You can too. There's a people for me and a people for you. Like a room that you found in your house that is new, with elaborate furnishings, all belonging to you. A people who will welcome and make you feel new. I've found the people for me. Now find the people for you.
Wow. Yeah. Great. That deserves something. That deserves something. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Wonderful. So there you have it, folks. We have been blessed to be in the presence of Richard and his amazing story. The information that he shared is available, and you can go on his website. It's www.foundmypeople.com and
Hmm.
look up that book. You can also get on Amazon, and he says you can get access to a free part
Two
of
chapter preview.
the first chapter, right?
Two chapters. It's a two
Right.
chapter preview on the Kindle. Click on the Kindle version, and
Kindle.
they'll be able to see a two chapter preview.
Yeah, that's right. So there is value in having this opportunity to be with Richard, not just from a DNA perspective or from a roots perspective, but from a faith based perspective, and also from the discovery of what you can encounter if you only connect with your history and your destiny. So, thank you so much, Richard. As we leave, I want us to remember the three watchwords: they are health, happiness, and prosperity. We love you,
Amen.
God's people, and we thank you so much for being with us on this episode. Until next time, this is Andy and Richard, my guests. In so long,
Bye bye.
God's God bless. Namaste. Shalom, my people. Stick around, Richard.